about today, I'm Gus Agoritsas, I'm one of the ETM faculty members here. And what we're going to talk about today is just basic documentation and coding as it relates to emergency medicine. So we're going to talk about what basic E&M is. You should all know, understand this when you graduate. It's critical care, you do a lot of that here, procedures, and then finally we're going to try and relate that back to, bring it back home to what was very important to everybody, is how do you get paid in the end? We're not going to talk about facility coding, urgent care, sedations, observation medicine, because each one of those is a topic to itself. 30 years ago, back when Dr. Silverberg used to work in C1, his notes was something similar to this. 15-year-old chin lac, I repaired it, I send them home, and that's about it. Okay? And then hopefully the bill got dropped, and they paid by check or cash or other things. And back then, the way people got credit for doing things was they saw 25 patients. They did 25 lacerations for the year, your department, or whatever. There was no such real concept of what's called RVUs, which is what we're going to get into shortly. Today, we face lots of challenges, if you haven't noticed. There's government payers who are trying not to pay us. They're trying to make us do more with less. We used to get paid by doing more. More procedures, you got paid more. You saw more patients, you got paid more. Now, we're in this middle of this changing in healthcare where we're actually going to be getting paid by providing better quality and better value to the patient. We see patients every day. Then somehow we have to get paid for that visit. Okay? What goes on after you send the patient home, we may not all know about, but what you document is very important in that you find results. So you see a patient, somehow all your gibberish, nowadays it's all the copying and pasting into notes, it gets translated over to what's called the CPT code or an ICD-9, ICD-10 code. Okay, we'll touch upon those as we go through this. Years ago it used to be on paper, now there's no such thing as paper. You send over the bill to the insurance company by transmitting it. Hopefully they see it and then it gets paid for. You get more money as the department or your hospital gets more money. Hopefully you'll be able to buy more equipment, better EMR systems, more data. With that data, you're supposed to do stuff with it. You've heard this before, you'll hear it again. It wasn't documented, it never happened. And if you can't document it, you can't bill for it. If you can't bill for it, you can't get paid for it. Okay? So think about everything else that you are involved with. You want to go see a lawyer? He tells you how much it's going to charge you, how much it's going to cost you. And you get paid lots of money for it. You want to get an oil change? They usually tell you it's going to cost X amount of dollars. Patients come to the hospital, they usually don't know what they're going to get charged for. And many of us don't know what we're charging for the visit. So, who knows what CPT stands for? Anybody? Current procedural technology, okay? So it identifies a service. Basically, it's a procedure. And then ICD-10 identifies the diagnosis. It used to be ICD-9. There's 13,000 visits. Now it's ICD-10 is about 60,000 visits, actual codes for different diagnoses, okay? It is more difficult to find the diagnosis, but in a good system, okay, not quadruped, you should be able to choose your right diagnosis so that that diagnosis then gets pulled into some data set, and then people can use that data to, in the back end, to figure out how we can make things better. Then there's what's called RVU, which is a relative value unit. So that's basically the currency of medicine, or has been the currency of medicine, okay? It's basically broken down into work, physician work, practice expense, and malpractice expense. And right now it's about $35, let's say, per RVU, okay? So that's very important. Think about it, $35 per RVU. Depending on what procedure, so this is basic math. RVU per procedure, that's supposed to be, I'm sorry, times dollars per RVU. So you have a procedure is X number of RVUs, and then you have each RVU is $35. You multiply that, that becomes dollars per procedure. Okay? Everybody familiar with that?
One RVU equals $35?
Correct. And then each procedure equals certain number of RVUs, okay? Some years ortho has better pay, some years radiology has better pays, so it all depends on who's sitting on that committee, who's basically giving the value to different procedures. In the emergency medicine, most of our procedures that we bill for are called E&M codes. And that's basically 99281 to 85, okay? And we'll go through that. And then there's 15% of the codes get dropped are usually due to some procedure, care, intubations, lumbar punctures, foreign body removals, all that other good stuff. As we do more and more, as we do more ultrasound, as we do more procedures in the ED instead of consulting other people to do the foreign body removal, the percentage of procedures goes up, and hopefully the revenue increases for your department wherever you want. So what's the key components for E&M? You need history, physical exam, and then medical decision making. Basically going back to what we learned in medical school, HPI. Okay, you need at least 4 of these in order to get to what's called a higher level CPT code or E&M code, which would be a level 5. You can't bill a level 5 for a stub toe, okay? But if you're admitting somebody, you should be billing a level 5, okay? Unfortunately, we don't always do that. Then review systems. There's 14 options. You need 8 of them, or 10 of them, in order to get to a level 5. Okay? What you can do, what you should do, is document in positives and negatives. And then, even if that's only 6 of them, you can click off that one box that you should see in T-System and Epic. You don't see it in Quadrant. All systems negative except as marked. Okay? That's saying that you, in theory, you asked every one of those questions. You asked and addressed every one of those review systems, or at least 10 of them.
So just to clarify that, when you click off negative or whatever for one system, you're allowed to do that for all the systems, or you can only do that for one of the systems?
You could do it for all of them if you actually asked for every one of them.
And then is it, I thought it was like you had to do 2 of each in each of the 10 categories. Is that correct, or is it just 1?
I mean, if you want to end up getting, if you ever get audited, the more the better. So yes, 2 would be better than 1. It's a little tricky. It all depends on the auditing at the end. I don't think anybody has ever said you definitely need 2. That's a great question.
Not to belabor it, but like an Epic, you're given an option of all, like negative, the system is negative, HEMG is negative.
Right.
So
That's basically, so you're basically saying it's negative to all those things that are predetermined as negative when you click it.
if you're audited, I don't know, like if you're audited, like you probably didn't ask the person, are you having whatever, some tingling in their ear or something, like.
They gotta prove it, but they can easily prove if you ask them, do you have vaginal discharges in a male?
Right.
But, you know, great question.
So if you have a blind patient, can you like ask them their visual changes?
So yes, you can, and you do document that they have no visual changes, but they're blind. You have to write down that they're blind. And you get credit for it. Huh?
So along the same token, can you do a college review system?
No, you can't. So as family social, you need at least 2 of the 3 to get to the higher level, okay? You don't need to ask for all 3 of these again with a stub toe, but if you're admitting somebody for appendicitis or congestive heart failure, you are very likely to have asked all questions for each one of these. And you should document it in order to get credit for it in the end. There's a caveat, okay, that we already so we are aware of, and especially in the critical care side, where you have patients who are seizing, they're altered, they're intubated, and you can't get any of this history, okay? But you can document unable to obtain full history and your systems and past failures due to this situation. And then you will get full credit for that in the end. But you have to document it. In Epic, whenever we get it, there is a thing where you can click it and it populates the notes.
What about unreliable excursions like dementia or intoxication?
Yes, yeah. As long as you document why. physical exam here, you need 8 organ systems in order to get to level 5. Now, I'm not telling you to document 8 organ systems on a stubbed toe or an ankle sprain, okay? Because even if you do, and you go level 5, it's going to get denied by the insurance company. Because they will match the ICD code, the ICD-10 code, to the procedure. And if they don't match to some degree, whatever formula they have, it gets denied. Finally, it's the medical decision making, which is probably the most important part. And many coders actually just start from the medical decision making, figure out what's there, and then go backwards. Okay? Not so much for you guys to know, but what I'm trying to say is it's very important that you document a good amount in your MDM section. So what do you focus on? Clinical impressions, diagnoses, lab results, discussions, consults, all that good stuff that we spend a lot of time on. So again, this makes it relatively simple. Now I wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of each do you need? So level 1, these are very rare and should not be common in our ED. Brief encounter with a very limited or minimal exam. What is that? So you have a wound recheck. They come in, they had an abrasion, and for some reason they came back. Okay? You check that and you don't do anything else, you build that as a level 1. Level 2, regular limited exam with no neuropelvic or rectal, because those are probably more of a higher acuity or more complicated patient. So rashes such as pityriasis, rosacea, eczema may be a level 2. Here, laceration exam of area other than wound. The reason why that's there is because emergency medicine allows, but in private practice in the office, if somebody comes in with a laceration, they may just bill the laceration code, which we will talk about shortly. But in emergency medicine, you are allowed to bill the level 2, okay? Because that's now saying you have examined the patient in addition to the exam of that laceration on the arm. Level 3, anything that's basically, an exam including the pelvic, usually includes a lab or an x-ray, that becomes a level 3. Level 4, you're getting some meds, you're getting some ancillary services, and then you are usually not being admitted, but in a psych admission will more likely be a level 4. 5 is when you have complicated patients who are in the ED for a long period of time, getting multiple studies, and then eventually being admitted. You could bill level 5 and send them home. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a 15% admit rate, which is what we have in county, we should have roughly a 15% level 5s. Where at downstate, 10 years ago, when I first came here, we had like an 18% admit rate, but we have a 3% level 5. Okay? So that tells you something's wrong. Now it's higher. I don't know what it is now, but it's definitely higher. So your status asthmaticus, you have a lot of appendicitis, your appendicitis that get admitted, go to the OR. Those are all basically level 5 patients. So how do you bulletproof your documentation? You should try with every high acuity or admitted patient that you have 4 elements from your HPI, at least 1 item from 2 aspects of past family social history, at least 10 elements from review systems, and 8 from physical exam. Hard to do in many ways, but it's not that difficult, because many of those admitted patients, you end up doing a lot of this stuff, or asking. So you should document it and get credit for it. So nowadays we have T-System on the computer prospector. Here, years ago we had it on paper, okay? You may see it nowadays on paper, they pull it out and T-System goes down maybe. But basically, I used to call these idiot-proof, because it was very simple to get to a level 5. What you had to do was check, backslash. The gray boxes usually meant that you can bill a higher acuity if you check that.